Hey everyone, welcome to Wishing Well BBQ. I'm Dustin Wells, and today, oh man, we are going to cook the largest beef plate ribs that I have ever seen in my life. It is going to be so awesome. You know what time it is. Let's do it. Y'all, if there is one thing that I really love in the barbecue world, it is beef plate ribs. They are a staple of Texas barbecue, and they come with these huge bones with this big piece of meat on it, and they honestly look like the ribs off of the Flintstones. Well, today I'm gonna cook the biggest beef ribs that I've ever seen. You will not believe how massive they are. Before we dive into these beef ribs, I just want to give a shout out to today's video sponsor, Palmer Beef Farms. Palmer Beef Farms is a locally owned beef farm here in Kentucky. They raise nothing but 100% grass-fed beef with no hormones or steroids. They've been in the business for several generations, so they really know what they're doing. And their meat quality is absolutely fantastic. They have a super awesome selection, and you can order their products online, or you can even pick them up locally. You can always check them out on Facebook or Instagram by searching Palmer Farms Beef. And you can also check out their website at palmerfarmsbeef.com. Anytime you order online, you can use the coupon code WWBBQ10 to get 10% off of your order. Trust me, you're gonna wanna check them out. Let's go back to last night so that I can show you how I prepare these massive beef ribs for the smoker. Holy cow. These beef ribs are insanely huge. Typically, when you have a Texas-style beef rib, the bones are going to be about 6 inches long, and they're going to come in 3 bone plates. These beef ribs have 4 bones, and each of the bones are 12 inches long. This rack of beef ribs weighs a little over 10 pounds. That is so crazy. I genuinely don't think that I've seen beef ribs anywhere near close to this size. And not only that, but the quality of this beef is super awesome. Just check out the awesome marbling on these beef ribs. Let me show you what I'm gonna do to season these and get them ready for the smoker. The first thing I need to do to get these beef ribs ready for the smoker is I need to just trim off any excess fat. If I do have any of this extra hard fat, I do wanna just take it down to about 1/4 of an inch. My butcher has already done a really good job of trimming these beef ribs for me, so I don't have that much to do. For these beef ribs, I'm gonna leave this membrane on, otherwise it's just gonna fall apart. And that's it, that's all I've gotta do to trim this thing up. Now let's put some seasoning on it. I'm gonna start out with just a little bit of yellow mustard. This is really just a binder. You're not gonna taste this in the end. The first seasoning I'm gonna use is some coarse kosher salt. These beef ribs are massive, so they can really take some extra salt. The next ingredient I'm gonna use is some table grind black pepper. I'm definitely gonna go heavy with this. Next, I'm gonna add some granulated garlic. And lastly, just for a little extra boost and some really awesome color, I'm gonna use Wishing Well BBQ competition style rub. Now we're gonna flip this over to the meat side, and we're gonna do the exact same process. And just like that, that's how we're gonna season these beef ribs. We're gonna leave them out here on the cutting board to hang out. Let's get out there and fire up the beast. All right, we're sitting at about the 3-hour mark, and I just want to go ahead and check out these beef ribs. So far, these beef ribs are looking really, really awesome. We're starting to develop that crust that we want, and some of this fat is starting to render. We still have quite a ways to go before we're ready to wrap up these beef ribs. I've also got a pork butt that's looking really good, and a beef brisket that's also looking awesome. Let's go ahead and get these beef ribs closed down, and we'll come right back to you whenever we're ready to wrap these. All right, y'all, we are at the 8.5-hour mark on these beef ribs. Let's check them out. Oh man, just check that out. That bark is nice and set. It's crunchy. We're getting some serious pullback on these bones. We have an internal temperature that's right around 180 degrees. All of these are signs that it's time to wrap. Everything else is looking pretty awesome too. Let's get these beef ribs over to the table so we can wrap them. All right, y'all, I have these beef ribs over here, and I'm gonna wrap today with some butcher paper. I've made some homemade beef tallow with some extra brisket trimmings that I had, and I put this tallow down on the paper. I'm also gonna splash a little bit on these beef ribs, just for some extra flavor. We're gonna start folding this up so we can get it wrapped up. Now this is my kind of present. Let's go get it back on the smoker, and now we're gonna start monitoring some internal temperatures. I'm looking for somewhere between 200 and 205 degrees, but we're gonna continually check once it gets to about 195 to make sure that we don't completely overcook these ribs. All right, y'all, we have had these beef plate ribs wrapped up for an additional 2 hours, which is a total cook time of 11 hours. Let's check it out. Let me tell you something, this butcher paper is absolutely saturated in rendered fat. You know that means these beef ribs are gonna be awesome. There is absolutely no resistance in these ribs. Now comes one of the most difficult parts of this entire cook, the rest period. We're gonna take these beef ribs off of the smoker and put them in a cooler, and we're gonna let them rest for at least an hour. That way all those juices can redistribute throughout the meat, so when we slice into them, they're nice and juicy, nice and tender. Man, I tell you what, I can't wait to sink my teeth into these ribs. Let's let them rest and we'll come back to you. All right, y'all, I have let these beef ribs rest for about an hour and a half now, and I cannot wait to dig into these. But before I do, let's go ahead and review what we did to get here. Palmer Beef Farms hooked me up with this humongous rack of beef ribs. I only had to do a little bit of trimming to these beef ribs. Then I used yellow mustard as a binder, and then I seasoned it with salt, pepper, garlic, and a little bit of my Wishing Well BBQ competition dry rub. We put it on the smoker between 250 and 275 degrees for about 8.5 hours. Then we wrapped these up in some butcher paper and covered them with some homemade beef tallow. And we let them smoke for an additional 2 hours. Then we let the beef ribs rest for an additional hour and a half. And now here we are, and you know what time it is? It's time to slice into it. Let's open this present. If this is not the biggest beef rib you've ever seen, I want you to comment below and tell me where you have found one that's bigger. This is so crazy. I just about can't wait anymore. You know what I've got to do. I've got to take a bite of this rib. And there's only one way to do it, and that's to take a bite of the whole thing. Cheers to you Cheers to Palmer Beef Farms, and cheers to a good cook. Let's take a bite. Oh man, I'll tell you what, I have never had beef ribs that good. I can't even begin to tell you how incredible these beef ribs taste. You can totally tell a difference in grass-fed beef and grain-fed beef. And honestly, I think this grass-fed has a phenomenal flavor. I gotta get another bite. Look how tender it is. Pulls right apart. Incredible. If you ever get a chance to do some huge beef ribs like this, it is totally worth it and you have got to try it. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you like what we're doing here on the Wishing Well BBQ channel, make sure you click that subscribe button below so that you don't miss out on any of the fun. Make sure you also check out Palmer Beef Farms. The link to all their social medias and their website is in the description below. Make sure you also follow Wishing Well BBQ on all of my socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you so much again for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time.